What's up, guys? This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. He is I, and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. Thank you for joining me once again, my friends. I hope all is well with you. Guys, let me just start off by thanking everybody who looks for my channel, everybody who comes back to watch my channel, everyone who comments, everyone who likes or subscribes. I really want to thank you for that, guys, because if you notice the bottom there where it tells about my information, you'll see that allegedly I have over 13,000 subs on this channel. And if you've been watching my videos and you're observant, you'll notice that I'm lucky if I barely get 100 views anymore, and I don't think this is natural. I'm not here to cry about it, but I'm just here to thank you guys. That's the point of it all. Okay, because I see a lot of people who do the same topics of videos that I do, and they're pushing something like 40K views, 30K views, 12K views, whatever, but definitely not 100. And some of them have a lot less subs than I do. So YouTube, sometimes you can just hit it that way, and that's the way it is. But I do thank you guys. I thank every one of you who actually comes back and listens and contributes to the conversation. All right, now let's talk about something that I saw, of course, on X over the last couple of days. And I want to comment on this because it reminds me of a little scenario from back in my childhood, way back in the prehistoric days. I remember taking a walk hand in hand with my mama, and we saw this woman who happened to be black, and she was walking down the street. And the thing that struck me the most is that we heard her before we saw her. All too often, you will hear a black woman before you see her. Okay, and that ain't a good thing. So anyway, we heard her, and she's yelling, she's hollering, she's cussing, and even worse, she's cussing at her child. And I remember saying to my mom, and I was a child, and I said to my mom, she makes you look bad. And what I meant as a child was that identifying her as a black woman, as many people do, would cause people to look at my mother as a black woman and think that she's like that. All right, so I wasn't saying that my mom was like that, because my mom is not like that. She's almost the opposite of that. My mother does not curse. I've never heard my mother effectively curse. And I say effectively because the few times that she's chosen to curse when she's been mad about something, usually outside of the home, because she never let that go on inside the home, and she cussed, you'd almost want to laugh, because she doesn't even sound right cursing. My mom, she talks perfect English. She's a bookworm, so she's always a reader and everything, so she knows how to use the English language and everything. So it just used to make us laugh every now and then when you hear her curse, because it was never effective. It never sounded right. So, and I love that about my mother. She was one of those people who, she said when she was growing up, she got bullied because a lot of the girls around her said that she talked or spoke white. And, there are some black people out there who can relate to what I'm saying, where you speak and you enunciate correctly or properly, and people will tell you that, oh, I don't know why you talking white. And we wonder why we got insulted with the label of Ebonics later on, the whole broken English thing. I'm not trying to down people who talk broken English. I mean, I can flip broken English with the rest of them. As you have heard on my videos, I can cuss with the best of them, because my father actually was a cusser, you know what I mean? And I've been in these streets. But, however, the point is that we don't accept this as this is just how we are. In other words, when I was growing up, my mom, she always taught us to, just present yourself the best way that you can present yourself. When you go for a job interview, there was a such thing as dressing for success, making a good first impression, things like that. So these are things that she taught us. And unfortunately, when I told my mom that, about how this woman, this ignorant, loud, belligerent woman, was making her look bad, my mom at the time, she got defensive. She was like, well, Marky, she's the only person in the world who can call me Marky. Her and my little sister, by the way. Shout out to them. But anyway, so she said, well, Marky, she's not making me look bad, because I am who I am. I carry myself the way that I carry myself. My mom holds several degrees. She's a college professor. All of these things. But like I said, she wasn't understanding that I know that she's not like her. But the larger society, even as a child, I realized that the larger society tends to judge black people by the worst of us, which is the reason why I say those of us who know better have to speak up louder. I know that it's not all black women. I know that it's not all black men, but there has to be a challenge for those of us who know better to present ourselves better, and to make sure that we are represented the way that we should be represented. When you see days and times that we're living in like we are now, where our image is in the toilet, you got to be like, damn, how did it get so bad? Did we let these people represent who we are? But anyway, long way of leading into what I saw on the internet over the last couple of days. And I want to remark on this because this is a direct challenge to what I'm saying. There is a group of black women in this world that are speaking far too loud for far too many of us. And I know that my sisters are better than this. I know because I have, like I said, I have a sister who also holds degrees, who also, she wears a natural, she knows how to speak, she's been on TV. I love to shout her out, but I'm kind of controversial. So for her, in the circles that she runs in, so I don't want to shout her out like that and have people go to her platform and everything like that. But yeah, she's been on TV and all that. She's well accomplished. But there are, women out there who unfortunately show bad for us, and they tend to be detrimental to us. And I'm not just talking about, oh, you're talking about ghetto chicks. No, I'm not talking about ghetto chicks, because I want to highlight something that Michelle Obama had to say that is to our detriment when it comes to how we progress in this world and our mind, the mind virus that too many of us have, that there's something somehow actively holding us back from even attempting to do the best that we can do. Okay, so let me start off by highlighting the clip that I'm talking about first. Okay, so you guys tell me what you think about this. Okay, let's just listen to what this sister has to say here.
Like, maybe I'm too woke, but I don't find the quarter zip shit funny, because I also didn't find it funny a couple years ago when all those black men put on suits.
Okay, now what she's talking about when she says the quarter zip trend is basically what you see here. Okay, here you go. It's like what she's talking about are young men attempting to make themselves more presentable by dressing for success, basically. I didn't know that this was a trend. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently it is. It's on TikTok. There could be worse trends. Like, you don't see her making this video. Maybe she does. I don't watch her. I don't know if she's some type of personality or whatever. But you don't see people with this energy towards our young men who are walking around with, I mean, you've seen them, with the latest in so-called thug wear. A while ago, they were wearing baggy pants, like you would see their whole ass, right? Their underwear, basically, walking down the block this way. Over tattooed all on their faces. These days, you see a lot of men, young men, they tend to dress more towards the homosexual, if you will, where they'll be wearing the crazy tight pants, or, sometimes you even see them wearing dresses. You see these NBA guys coming out wearing dresses and everything, LeBron, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about all that stuff. We're going to talk about this trend here that's making them look presentable, God forbid, when they go in for a job interview. But let's hear her rationale.
And then stood around in suits. I don't understand what men in general, but especially black men's obsession is with defining themselves by their clothing and not really actively.
These young men look freaking great. They look great. Who would object to something like this? They look amazing. They got their hair cut. They're well groomed. They look great. If you walk into a job interview and you shake somebody's hand looking like this, you're giving yourself the best chance possible. I'm not here to argue that discrimination and bigotry doesn't exist. We all know that it does. But I'm just saying, why would you object to this? She doesn't understand black men's obsession with how they come across, with how they dress. Bro.
Doing any is not deeper than just like, well, we can put on suits. I can also put on a suit. What is the point that you're trying to make here? Like, it's like costume. Like, let's dress up as the social idea of success, or productivity or decent, productive human being. I don't know. I don't even understand what y'all are trying to communicate to us. Y'all are constantly like essentially dressing up as white men. Like that's
Wow. Essentially dressing up like white men because they want to look more presentable, all right, in the marketplace of employment. These guys are looking to the future where they want to be providers. They want to be good husbands. They want to be good fathers. And you're finding I guess that's reserved for white guys. You know, this is what I'm talking about, guys. Listen, the best thing that I ever thought of when I was a kid, right? I remember I was never much of a talker. You wouldn't believe it now because I talk on camera and stuff. But that's because I have a lifetime of this built up. Because you see, when I was younger, much younger, and I had all of these ideas and opinions, people will always say to me, man, just wait till you grow up. You know, get some life experience. Shut up. Don't say anything. Wait until you live. So basically, I was told, just be quiet. You know, I'm a teenager and everything. You haven't seen anything of the world. Just be quiet. But you know something, young brothers and sisters, time goes by extremely fast. Someone tell me that I'm lying. You know I'm not. Time goes by extremely fast. And guess what? Before you know it, you're counting grays. And before you know it, you're counting black hairs because the grays have outnumbered them. And guess what happens when you get to be a certain age? People tell you, shut up. You're too old to be talking about this. You're too old to be talking about cartoons. You're too old to be talking about music. Just yesterday, I was too young. That's the funny thing about this. There is never a time, especially for black men, young black men, take heed. There is never a time when we're supposed to stand for anything. Unless we're dead. I talked about that before. And then people get to tell you what you stood for. Moving on.
kind of the underlying idea. Suits, quarter zips, like associating yourself with this like stereotypically white style.
And the funny thing about this too, guys, is that she's saying all of this is attributed to white guys. And then when a woman like her wants to talk about the ideal man, then she'll go for a white guy. She'll say that the white guy knows how to dress. The white guy knows how to provide. The white guy knows how to be a father and a husband. But she seems to be more comfortable with young black men being whatever, being street, being thug. She's actually objecting to this young man wanting to look more presentable. This is incredible, guys. But once again, what I learned a long time ago, you never, look at me, young man, look at me. I tell my son this all the time. Never let a woman tell you what a real man is, okay? This is not to be disrespectful to women. It's just a fact. There are certain things inside of a man that a woman will never understand, okay? All she sees is the outward. That's what you're talking about here, right? A certain type of woman, I should say, a certain type. A lot of women, I hope that most women are not like this. It's just that the ones who are like this get way too much airtime. But you never let a woman like this tell you what a man is. Never. It never ends well, ever. Okay? And women, young women, never let a woman like this represent you. Okay? Moving on.
Hello? Do y'all not see how that's one, offensive to you as a black person, upholds white supremacy, but is also reductive of your like humanness?
Uphold white supremacy. By the way, I like his hat. It's like I'm wearing almost the same hat. I'm wearing it backwards because, 80s, 90s dude. But yeah, so anyway, yeah. So they're saying it upholds white supremacy. All right, guys, look. If you were in a different culture, right, in that dominant culture wore, I don't know, African thobes or something, where they wear the long gowns and stuff, and the men, and that was what the metric of, their success and stuff, you would dress that way. If you're in America, right, you can say what you want. You can say that it's a European standard. You can say whatever you want. This is American culture. Okay? Back in the 60s, your grandfathers, your great grandfathers, they wore jackets, shirts, ties. We saw them when they were marching, "We shall overcome," and all that stuff. That's what they were wearing. The young women of the day, your grandmothers, great grandmothers, great great grandmothers, they wore dresses that covered the majority of their bodies. Didn't mean that they didn't have a banging ass and all that stuff. No. But they chose to dress classy, modestly. They watched their language and things like that. I mean, a lot of them did. You know, it is what it is. These are called having morals, having values, being aware of the fact that you're raising a generation that is going to have to compete in the job market. So you have to some degree, value the way that they come across, the way that they speak, the way that they dress. But no, this is what we're talking about here.
I don't know. It's like everything all the time with them. Nothing latches.
Okay, well, she is criticizing black men. And you guys know, I talked about this before. The 30th anniversary of the Million Man March was this year. And it was October 16th, 1995. Nobody wanted to acknowledge it in the community. It was vastly underreported. I'm not going to say nobody acknowledged it. I did. You know, I know plenty of people probably did. But it was incredibly underreported. It's undervalued because of this sentiment right here. We don't value what black men attempt to do. We don't. And I'm talking about everybody. All right. If anyone in this society valued what black men were doing, then the Million Man March would have been much better remembered. But no, we continue to have these jokes about black fathers. Every Father's Day, we got to get cards for black mothers, single black mothers. You know, we don't value that. When we talk about the Million Man March, the intention was that we would be more accountable for what goes on in our communities, what goes on in our families. But then you had women like this who would come up and say, "Y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all ain't changing nothing." You know, and you know, they prefer to uplift that thug dude. That's the guy who's having all these bastard kids out here because that's who they run after. The proof is right out there. You don't have to blame me for saying it. It's the truth. You know, they run after the thug dude. That's what they want. The educated lame, I've heard that term floating around, would be the Steve Urkels, the nerds. You know, we look at people like Clarence Thomas. We call him an Uncle Tom. We look at people like Colin Powell. We call him an Uncle Tom. It seems like everybody in our community who actually achieves something becomes detached from the community, according to us. Now, all of a sudden, they're the coon. And what gets you labeled a coon the quickest? By suggesting that somehow we are in control of our destiny. God forbid in 2025, about to be 2026, that we should be in control of our destiny, that we can control our image and how we come across, that we can control our values. No, nobody wants to hear about that. Shut up. Shut up, they say. Just be the nigger that you are, they say. Now, I just lost my monetization because that's the way it works. Guys, by the way, for some reason, YouTube doesn't like straight talk. They like you to talk in code, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I just accept my lot on YouTube because I remember one time Curtis Mayfield, old R&B funk singer, he said the one thing he's never going to do is talk down to his audience. The one thing he's never going to do is assume ignorance on his audience, and I never will. So I'm going to have to accept my lot in life. But that's okay, because you're here, and I thank you for it, like I said before. Now, once again, you could just, I mean, ooh, ew, look at the look on her face, bro. It's like, see, this is what I'm talking about, man. Ugh. Don't be this woman. I am not talking about all black women, all right? I got a lot of black women on this channel who come in and they even when they disagree with me, they disagree in a respectful, healthy way. They've been here for years, and I really want to shout them out. I really want to show my love for them. I got a lot of white women who come in here as well. You know, I got to tell you, you know, I was talking about hair the other day, and I forgot to say, I have to say, I believe I've run my fingers through the hair of just about every type of woman that's been out there. You know what I mean? Whether it's black, whether it's white, whether it's Asian, whether it's Indian. And, you know, it's not like they've all been lovers. I should be so lucky. but I've had a lot of friends who are girls, who are a lot of women and stuff like that. And I haven't smashed them all, not for lack of trying. But anyway, you could just write this off as being just one ratchet chick, right? And I don't even know her, so it's probably not fair to call her ratchet, but it's just this type of woman. This type of woman is the woman you don't want to listen to, okay? But you go to a woman like Michelle Obama, dude. Michelle Obama, one of, well, the first lady, the first black lady of the United States of America, right? And you guys know I highlighted her before. This is what this chick had a nerve to say. Now, I'm going to ask you a question after you listen to this, okay? But listen to what Michelle Obama had to say.
Do you think that that impacts the room that we've made for a woman to be president?
Well, as we saw in this past election, sadly, we ain't ready. That's why I'm like, don't even look at me about running, because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You are not. So don't waste my time.
Okay. She's being asked about the prospect of her running for president. Why? I don't know. I don't see how or why she would run for president. God help us if she ever won because of her attitude. Okay, don't go telling me about, well, she holds this degree and she holds that degree and everything. You heard me talk about my mom's degree, my sister's degree and everything. That's great. But with that comes a certain vision and a certain attitude. And that's what makes a leader for America. So she wouldn't have been a good leader anyway. We all know that Kamala Harris would not have been a good leader. Okay, I'm not trying to disrespect her or anything. I think she's a decent person. I don't know her personally. I know her sister is bad, boy. But anyway, the point is that it's about an attitude. Now, let me ask you something, okay? She's saying, don't waste my time asking me to run for president because y'all ain't ready. What do you think this sounds like to a young black girl who's watching this? Do you think, you got two choices. Do you think this is encouraging to a young black girl who says, one day, mommy and daddy, I'm going to be president of the United States? Do you think that that encourages her, or do you think that discourages her? Let's be honest about it. Get in the comment section. Do you think what Michelle Obama just said encourages a young black girl to run for president of the United States, or do you think it discourages her? Do you think it encourages a young black boy? And I got a nephew, by the way, who wants to be, he's been saying this forever. He just turned 9 years old. Shout out to him. He's great, you know, but anyway, I could go on and on. That's why it's like, you know, I'm so proud of my kids and boys and my nephew. So anyway, do you think he would see this and be encouraged or discouraged? And you see, this is what black people have been saying to each other for ages. You remember Tupac said it, you know, it seems evident we ain't ready to have a black president. But is anybody ever ready for anything? You know, it's like the old saying, ready or not, here I come. Lauryn Hill, ready or not, you can't hide, here I come. I'm gonna find you and make you want me. You know what I mean? Ready or not. This is what the definition of a breakthrough is. Whether people are ready for you or they're not ready for you, you have to do the things that you're supposed to do. And guys, it reminds me, right? I just want to do this and wrap it up real quick. It reminds me of something that I saw Michael Jackson say a long time ago, and I can't find that clip. Michael Jackson was talking about how MTV turned down playing, there's my dog again. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm going to post a picture of Smokey, okay? Because shout out to Sassy. She was asking me, show a picture of Smokey, or Smokey wants to be on the video. Smokey's not going to be on the video because if he came in here, he'd be licking me all in my face, all in my mouth. He'd probably knock over the camera. He's such a good dog. He's my boy. But I'm going to post a picture on X of Smokey. But anyway, the point is, right, is that Michael Jackson was talking about how MTV closed the door in his face. They didn't want to play Off the Wall. And it actually inspired him creatively to get in the studio and create Thriller. And I remember him sitting back, and in his own Michael Jackson way, he was like, let them ignore this. And I was like, yo, that's the most gangster thing I've ever heard in my life. Dude got all types of doors slammed in his face, and he's like, Boom, let them ignore this. And of course, they couldn't ignore it. But I couldn't find that clip. But I did find this clip that I've always watched as well. This is a clip of the legendary David Bowie in 1983 questioning MTV about why they weren't playing black artists. Listen to a little bit of this.
You know, all right. It occurred to me, having watched MTV over the last few months, that it's a solid enterprise with it, and it's got a lot going for it. I'm just floored by the fact that there's so few black artists featured on it. Why is that?
I think that we're trying to move in that direction.
This dude is so smooth. So smooth. Listen. Hold up.
I'm just floored by the fact that there's so few black artists featured on it. Why is that?
I think that we're trying to move in that direction. We want to play artists that seem to be doing music that fits into what we want to play for MTV. The company is thinking in terms of narrow casting.
That's evident. It's evident in the fact that the only few black artists that one does see are on about 2:30 in the morning to around 6. Very few are featured predominantly during the day.
No, that's a...
You know what I love about this clip too, guys? The reason why it stayed with me my whole life is that David Bowie is not playing. This is not an example of virtue signaling. He legitimately wants to know why you're not playing these fantastic artists. And he's saying this in his own smooth way. This dude is freaking awesome. I remember seeing him on Soul Train before when he was doing Let's Dance. You know, a lot of black people, we love that one. You know, put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Dude. Anyway, so David Bowie is not playing. He wants to know what is going on. Okay, so let me wrap this up.
Say that over the last couple of weeks, these things have been changing, but it's a slow process.
I know, it's funny, I think people have different perceptions. When you wind up watching, let's say you watch an hour or 2 or even 3 a day, people somehow come away with different ideas about what we are doing. We don't have any kind of day parting for anything.
Look at Bowie's face. He's like, bro, you know you're full of shit, right? He's not. I love it. This is the definition of the side eye. He's like, nah, bro, nah. But let me finish this up.
Let alone a black artist day parted out of what would be, quote, prime time. We don't have that.
Because one sees a lot there's one black station on television that I keep picking up. I'm not sure which station it's on. But there seem to be a lot of black artists making very good videos that I'm surprised aren't used on MTV.
Oh, of course, also we have to try and do what we think not only New York and Los Angeles will appreciate, but also Poughkeepsie or Midwest. Pick some town in the Midwest that will be scared to death by Prince, which we're playing, or
they'd be scared to death by Prince. Now, this was 1983, so you know Prince was just about to blow. He was just doing 1999, Controversy. This was slightly before Purple Rain. Everything was about to blow wide open.
String of other black faces.
That's
and black
very
music.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
You know, we have to play the music that we think an entire country is going to like, and certainly we're a rock and roll station now. The question would be asked, well, should, since we're in New York, should PLJ play,
There's a part that I want to get to before I cut this off. That's the reason why I'm letting it go on.
Yeah, because we have grown up in a
There's something Bowie says that I think is so deep.
It means something to me, and so do the Spinners, even way after the Isley Brothers. But what does it mean to a 17-year-old? Well, if you talk on the phones to these guys like I did when I was in radio, it's
well,
scary.
I tell you what it means. I tell you what maybe the Isley Brothers or Marvin Gaye means to a black 17-year-old. And surely he's part of America as well.
No question.
There it is. There it is. There it is. David Bowie. I love you, man. David Bowie. Thank you. Thank you for saying that in 1983. He says, the guy is saying, what does the Spinners, what does Marvin Gaye, you know, what's the other one he said, the Isley Brothers, what do they mean to, I guess he's talking about white people, white America. But see, these are the guys who influenced Bowie and people like him, you know, Hall & Oates, things like that. So he's saying, what does that mean to white kids in America? David Bowie looks at him and says, I'll tell you what it means to a 17-year-old black kid, and surely they're part of America. Bro, the feeling that I get listening to that, I can't believe he got it. Like today, we don't get it. You know, that's why I say we're going backwards. This was 1983, guys. That's why I say we're going backwards. Because today, people will sit there and they'll say, I don't understand why Salt and Pepper and Outkast was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, they don't get it. Rock and roll, understand what rock and roll is. Rock and roll doesn't necessarily mean exclusively rock music. All right. And rock and roll, when you want to question an artist, racially, right? I know we're talking primarily about music, but rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, all of those acts from back then, you know, so we all built this. And I love what Bowie had to say. We're part of America too, you know, and that's the point. That's the point, guys. We're part of America too. So to bring it full circle, you know, what the young sister was saying there, you know, about it being white supremacy, you know, to dress for success and all of that. We're part of America. And honestly, guys, we have to start investing in that idea. We're not going anywhere. We're not going back to Wakanda. All right, we're not doing those things. We're not going to participate in a race war. There will never be a race war in America. The only thing there could ever be is a massacre. That's all there will ever be. I suggest that you watch Gangs of New York when you see how things were resolved at the end of Gangs of New York. That's the way your race war is going to end. It's going to end with the federal government and army coming in and bombing the hell out of all of us. Understand that. We knew how to get along at some point. We have to remember that, and that's what we have to be. We have to know. I don't care if it's a quarter zip trend. I don't care whatever it is. You have to be more presentable when you're in these streets. All right? You have to. You can't look like your enemy. And like I told my mother, I told her, oh, it wasn't that that person was making her look bad. I said, that woman is your enemy. That's what I said. Damn it, young Mark. I'm sorry to misrepresent you, young Mark. Young Mark said, Mom, that's your enemy. Loud, belligerent, ignorant, self-destructive, insulting, non-loyal black women are the enemies of black women who want to be loyal, you know, who want to be self-respecting, who want to be good mothers, who want to be good wives. You must distance yourself from those women, or at least teach them better. Because if we don't, guys, those are the ones who are raising the terrible dudes out here that people like to talk about, the ones who are running through the streets being crazy and all of that. And men, you have to be more responsible. You have to teach your sons. You have to be there for your daughters. I don't mean to be all preachy, guys, but I had someone on my last video leave a comment. They prefer me talking about comics and cartoons and things like that. I find that to be irresponsible. I'm not going to do this exclusively, but guys, you know, for almost 10 years, what have I been saying? I'm taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. And sometimes this is what's on my mind because I'm a grown man. And this is what I'm going to talk about. If I want to talk about the comics and cartoons and things like that, I will also. You're just getting me, bro, 100%. So anyway, guys, you can get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about all of this. As always, you can like, you can share, and you can subscribe. Thank you once again. Big shout out to all of you for being here. All right, guys, thanks for putting up with me. I will catch you on the next one. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.